A single phone call changed everything for Bill O'Reilly. After 20 years as Fox News' biggest star, with millions in his bank and the highest ratings in cable news, it took just minutes for his world to crumble. Today, insiders finally reveal what really happened on that April morning, and the secret decision that ended O'Reilly's reign forever. Bill O'Reilly was born on September 10, 1949, in Manhattan, New York City. When he was just 2 years old, his family moved to Long Island, settling in the new suburban area of Levittown. Bill often spoke about his working-class upbringing there, but later it came out that his family actually lived in nearby Westbury, not Levittown. This led to some people accusing him of trying to exaggerate his story to seem more relatable. Growing up in the 1950s, Bill experienced life in a growing suburban America. He went to St. Bridget Catholic School, where strict rules and tough teachers left a big impact on him. These early years shaped the strong personality and hard work ethic he became known for. During high school, he even crossed paths with Billy Joel, who later became a famous musician. Bill remembered Joel as a hood who hung out with kids who smoked and slicked their hair back. Bill, on the other hand, was more into sports and kept out of trouble. After college, Bill's first job was as a teacher. In 1971, he moved to Miami, Florida, where he taught English and history at a Catholic high school called Monsignor Edward Pace. He also helped with the school's baseball team. Teaching in Miami connected Bill with everyday people and gave him a real sense of how schools worked, something he would talk about later in his career. But even then, Bill had bigger ambitions. While teaching, he walked into a local magazine office and told the editor he wanted to be their new movie critic. The editor, impressed by his confidence, gave him a chance. This was just the beginning of Bill's move into journalism. By 1973, he decided to leave teaching and go all in on his dream of working in media. He joined Boston University to study broadcast journalism. At Boston University, Bill worked hard. He wrote for local newspapers, like the Boston Phoenix, while also taking classes. One of his classmates was Howard Stern, who later became a famous radio personality. Their time together at school showed just how different paths could come out of the same place. Bill leaned towards serious, conservative news, while Stern went on to push boundaries in entertainment. Bill also interned at a local TV station, WBZ-TV, where he learned how television news worked behind the scenes. In 1975, he graduated with a master's degree in journalism. Right after graduating, Bill got his first TV job at WNEP-TV in Scranton, Pennsylvania. He worked as a consumer troubleshooter, investigating complaints from the public. This role helped him develop the tough, direct style he became famous for. But his job wasn't all serious. He also wrote jokes for a local Saturday night monster movie show called Uncle Ted's Ghoul School. This fun side of his career is something many people don't know about. Bill O'Reilly's career started in local news, where he worked hard but always managed to stir up drama. In Dallas, he joined WFAA-TV in 1977. Right away, he made a name for himself with bold reporting. On June 21, 1977, he uncovered a judge taking bribes, earning an award for investigative reporting. But his attitude caused trouble. On July 4, 1978, O'Reilly had a big fight with his boss after his story on corruption was replaced with holiday news. Everyone at the station remembered that argument. In 1978, he moved to KMGH-TV in Denver. He covered a dramatic plane hijacking at the Denver airport on November 2, 1979, staying on air for 12 hours. This earned him an Emmy Award. But his time there wasn't smooth either. In February 1980, a female co-worker accused him of harassment. The complaint was later dropped, but it hinted at issues that would come up again later. Then he went to WCBS-TV in New York in 1980. He did a huge investigation on corrupt city marshals, which aired on May 17, 1982, and got him another Emmy. But O'Reilly couldn't stay out of trouble. On August 1, 1982, during a live broadcast, he criticized the station's weak coverage of a political scandal. That got him fired just a few days later. In 1982, O'Reilly joined CBS News. His assignments were intense. In 1983, he reported on the Civil War in El Salvador. On April 2nd, he described a town completely destroyed by fighting, but later footage showed the town was still standing. During the Falklands War, he arrived in Argentina after the fighting ended. On June 16, 1982, during a protest in Buenos Aires, O'Reilly said he saw soldiers shoot into the crowd with live bullets. Other reporters there disagreed, saying only rubber bullets were used and no one was killed. O'Reilly clashed with CBS again in 1985, accusing Dan Rather of using his footage without giving him credit. This led to a heated argument, and O'Reilly left CBS. In 1986, he joined ABC News. His first big story was the Challenger space shuttle disaster. He covered it from Cape Canaveral on January 28, 1986, and his emotional reporting earned him a national Emmy. In 1987, he was at the Berlin Wall as it started coming down. He climbed on top of the wall to celebrate with locals and won another Emmy for this. But soon after, he covered a protest in Chile and claimed to be in a war zone with live bullets flying. Reports later showed the protest was mostly peaceful, with only tear gas being used. By 1989, O'Reilly was causing friction at ABC, criticizing the network's decisions. After a blow-up over their coverage of the Exxon Valdez oil spill, he left ABC on June 30, 1989. Later that year, O'Reilly became the host of Inside Edition. He started on October 9, 1989, and quickly turned it into the top-rated news show by 1992. A big moment came in 1992 when he interviewed Joey Buttafuoco during the Amy Fisher scandal. Over 11 million people watched, but critics called it trashy journalism. O'Reilly also faced backlash in 1993 after making racially insensitive comments about the Los Angeles riots. He apologized, but it hurt his reputation. By the time he left in 1995 to study at Harvard, the show's viewership had grown by over 50%. His time there set him up for his next chapter, becoming one of the biggest and most controversial figures in media at Fox News. In 1996, Bill O'Reilly made a big career move. On October 7th, he joined the brand-new Fox News channel at the age of 47. At the time, CNN was the most popular cable news network, and starting a conservative news channel seemed like a risky idea. Fox News was created by Rupert Murdoch, and Roger Ailes, the CEO, wanted O'Reilly as one of the main hosts. O'Reilly had been the host of a tabloid-style show called Inside Edition, and some people thought he wasn't serious enough for news. But Ailes believed O'Reilly had something special. He could connect with viewers and stir up debates. When Fox News launched, it had only 17 million subscribers, far fewer than CNN. O'Reilly's first salary was $1 million per year, and he worked in a small studio in New York City. The early days weren't smooth. There were technical problems, and O'Reilly sometimes had to think fast and keep talking when things went wrong. But his show, The O'Reilly Report, quickly stood out. Within 6 months, it was getting 228,000 viewers every night, which was a big deal for a new channel. When the show first started, it aired at 6 p.m. and focused on analyzing news. O'Reilly noticed that people liked his strong opinions, so he began to include more of his own thoughts. In 1998, the show was renamed The O'Reilly Factor. A friend of O'Reilly's suggested the name, saying O'Reilly himself was the factor that made the show unique. Around this time, the show moved to the 8 p.m. slot, going head-to-head with CNN's Larry King Live. O'Reilly started using the phrase "caution," "you are about to enter the no-spin zone," in 2004, and it became a famous catchphrase. The show also began with a popular segment called Talking Points Memo, where O'Reilly gave his take on the day's biggest stories. By 2001, The O'Reilly Factor was the most-watched cable news show, and it stayed at the top for 16 years. In 2009, the show had its best year, with 3.1 million viewers watching every night. O'Reilly's salary grew too, reaching $20 million per year by 2016. What made O'Reilly different from other hosts was his confrontational style. At first, he was more relaxed, but he soon realized that heated arguments brought in more viewers. By 1998, O'Reilly was known for tough interviews. One of his most talked-about moments happened in 2003 when he interviewed Jeremy Glick, a man whose father died in the 9/11 attacks. The conversation became so tense that O'Reilly had Glick's microphone cut off. Moments like this were controversial, but they made people tune in. O'Reilly had his own techniques. He interrupted guests, waved them off with hand gestures, and even said, "Cut his mic," when he thought someone was avoiding his questions. Not everyone liked his style, but it worked. By 2009, his confrontational approach was so well known that even studies measured how often he used tactics like name-calling. The show's success kept growing. In 1997, it had 297,000 viewers per night. By 1998, that number nearly doubled. After the 9/11 attacks, the show's viewership jumped even higher. In November 2001, The O'Reilly Factor beat CNN's Larry King Live for the first time, with 2.3 million viewers compared to King's 1.9 million. From that point on, Fox News became the leader in cable news. By 2006, Fox was earning more money than CNN and MSNBC combined. O'Reilly's audience wasn't just conservative either. About 30% of his viewers were Democrats or independents. At its height, the show made Fox News about $100 million a year in advertising. Meanwhile, Bill O'Reilly started the Radio Factor on September 9, 2002. It was a 2-hour radio show that aired every weekday, quickly becoming a huge success. Over 3.26 million people listened to it across 400 radio stations. O'Reilly brought his sharp, confrontational style from TV to the radio, which made the show exciting for listeners. He often argued with callers and guests. One moment stood out in 2004 when a caller accused him of supporting war. O'Reilly angrily shouted, "You want the terrorists to win," and cut the call. This moment spread everywhere online, with millions watching it on YouTube in just days. Even with its popularity, the show faced problems. In 2006, O'Reilly upset people with comments about a sexual assault victim, and some advertisers stopped supporting the show. Still, the Radio Factor stayed strong and ranked among the top 10 radio shows in the country. By 2008, it was making $10 million a year. O'Reilly also added short radio segments called Radio Factor Minute that aired on 600 stations, making him even more famous. When the show ended in 2009, it had aired 1,445 episodes and left a big mark on talk radio. O'Reilly didn't just stop at radio. He wrote books that became massive hits. His first big book, The O'Reilly Factor, The Good, the Bad, and the Completely Ridiculous in American Life, came out in 2000 and stayed on bestseller lists for 14 weeks. Then, in 2011, he started his Killing series with Killing Lincoln. It sold 1 million copies in 3 months. every new book in the series, like Killing Kennedy, Killing Jesus, and Killing Patton, became a #1 bestseller. By 2015, the series had sold over 8.5 million copies. But not everyone loved the books. In Killing Jesus, O'Reilly claimed he got the idea in a dream, saying it came to him in the middle of the night. Some people praised him, while others mocked him. Another controversy came with Killing Kennedy, where O'Reilly claimed he was present at a man's suicide, but that claim was later disputed. Still, the books kept selling, and by 2014, Killing Patton alone sold 1.5 million copies, making it the top nonfiction book of the year. O'Reilly also became a highly paid public speaker, earning up to $100,000 for one event. His speaking tours, like the Bold Fresh Tour in 2010 with comedian Dennis Miller, made over $10 million. But controversy followed him everywhere. In 2016, during a speech, he claimed that some people wanted to destroy the Electoral College to take power from the white establishment, causing outrage. In 2015, during another tour, he shocked an audience by saying he was on an Al-Qaeda hit list. After leaving Fox News, he joined Donald Trump in 2021 for a speaking tour that earned him $7 million, but got criticized for low ticket sales and his soft approach to questioning Trump. One of the most famous happened on September 13, 1993, during a taping of Inside Edition. While filming the closing segment, a teleprompter malfunction made things confusing. O'Reilly didn't understand what "to play us out" meant, which referred to ending the show with a Sting song. He became more frustrated with every take, and finally, he exploded. He yelled, "Fuck it! We'll do it live!" His face turned red, and his voice got so loud it could be compared to a vacuum cleaner. The crew of 17 people was stunned, with producer Mary Duffy later calling it terrifying. That clip stayed hidden for 15 years, but was leaked in 2008. It went viral on YouTube, getting over 13 million views in a week. The phrase, "We'll do it live," became a meme and even appeared on merchandise. O'Reilly later said he had been through 47 takes that day and blamed technical issues, but the moment is still what many people remember about him. O'Reilly wasn't just known for outbursts, he also had a lot of public feuds. One of the longest was with Keith Olbermann from MSNBC. It started in 2003 when Olbermann mocked something O'Reilly said about World War II. For 7 years, they attacked each other on their shows. O'Reilly called MSNBC names, and Olbermann labeled O'Reilly "worst person in the world" 42 times. Another feud was with Al Franken, which began when Franken wrote a book criticizing O'Reilly. In 2003, they argued in front of 100 people at a book expo, with O'Reilly yelling, "Shut up! You had your 35 minutes." This fight led to Fox News suing Franken, though the lawsuit didn't go anywhere. O'Reilly also clashed with politicians. One famous moment was in 2009 during an interview with Barney Frank. They argued about the financial crisis, with O'Reilly accusing Frank of lying. Frank responded, "The problem with your show is you start ranting, and I have to look as bad as you to respond." Millions of people watched the clip online. O'Reilly's interview style also caused controversy. In 2003, he interviewed Jeremy Glick, whose father died on 9/11. Glick had signed an anti-war ad, which angered O'Reilly. During the interview, O'Reilly yelled at him, told him to shut up, and eventually cut his microphone. Many viewers were outraged, saying it was disrespectful to a 9/11 victim's son. Another time, in 2004, NPR's Terry Gross interviewed O'Reilly about his feud with Al Franken. O'Reilly accused her of being unfair and ended the interview early, calling it a hatchet job. These moments made O'Reilly look aggressive and unwilling to deal with tough questions. He also used ambush journalism, where his team confronted people unexpectedly. In 2009, his producer confronted journalist Amanda Turkle near her home because she had written something critical about O'Reilly. She later said it felt intimidating. Many called this harassment, but O'Reilly defended it, saying it held people accountable. In 2004, Andrea Macris, a producer on The O'Reilly Factor, accused Bill O'Reilly of harassment. She said he made unwanted, inappropriate advances and harassed her over 4 years. Macris worked with O'Reilly from 2000 to early 2004 and came back briefly later that year. Her lawsuit described disturbing behavior, including explicit phone calls where he pressured her into talking about sexual fantasies. She even claimed to have recorded some of these calls. In one call, O'Reilly talked about using a falafel thing on her, but it seemed like he meant a loofah. This detail was strange and became a joke in the media. Macris also said O'Reilly called her late at night while sounding like he was touching himself. He shared odd personal stories, like losing his virginity to a flight attendant when he was 33. During a work dinner, he allegedly suggested a threesome with Macris and her friend. She said O'Reilly used his power to scare her, warning that if she ever reported him, he would make her regret it. Right before Macris made her lawsuit public, O'Reilly and Fox News sued her and her lawyer. They claimed she was trying to extort $60 million to stay quiet. This made the case even more intense and messy, with both sides fighting hard in public. It quickly became a national story, with people talking about harassment at work and the power of big names like O'Reilly. Just 2 weeks after the lawsuit, O'Reilly and Macris settled. She received about $9 million, which was a huge amount at the time. The settlement included a rule that Macris couldn't talk about the case publicly. Both sides said there was no wrongdoing, but O'Reilly still denied everything. He said he settled only to protect his family from embarrassment. On his show, he claimed he was being unfairly attacked because of his fame. This case wasn't the last for O'Reilly. The New York Times published an investigation on April 1st, 2017, exposing Bill O'Reilly's history of sexual harassment settlements. This report was the result of months of hard work by reporters Emily Steele and Michael S. Schmidt, who later won a Pulitzer Prize for their efforts. They interviewed many current and former Fox News employees and worked around the challenges of confidentiality agreements signed by the women involved. Despite these obstacles, they uncovered that O'Reilly had paid at least $13 million to settle 5 cases between 2002 and 2016. The largest was $9 million in 2004 to Andrea Macris, a producer who accused O'Reilly of making offensive phone calls and comments. Another settlement in 2016 was for Juliette Huddy, who said O'Reilly pursued her romantically and retaliated when she declined. Other cases involved verbal abuse and unprofessional behavior, including a $1.5 million settlement in 2002 with Rachel Whitlieb Bernstein, who said O'Reilly yelled at her in front of colleagues. These allegations painted a troubling picture of O'Reilly's behavior. For example, Andrea Macris alleged that he made inappropriate calls and threatened her with serious consequences if she reported him. Juliette Huddy's case involved accusations of career retaliation. Other women described verbal bullying, which created a hostile work environment. Despite the serious nature of these allegations, Fox News initially defended O'Reilly. On the same day the New York Times report was released, the network's parent company issued a statement emphasizing his value to the channel. They acknowledged discussing the claims with O'Reilly, but framed them as personal matters he had resolved. The public response was swift and intense. Within days, over 50 major companies, including brands like Mercedes-Benz and BMW, pulled their advertisements from The O'Reilly Factor. By April 6th, the show's number of national ads dropped from 33 to just 7. Many companies issued statements explaining their decision, saying they could not support the show under the circumstances. The financial impact was enormous. Fox News lost millions of dollars in advertising revenue, as many companies not only pulled ads from O'Reilly's show, but from the network entirely. Protests also broke out. On April 18, 2017, a large crowd gathered outside Fox News headquarters in New York City, calling for O'Reilly to be fired. Activist groups organized petitions, and public figures joined the conversation. Online campaigns pressured advertisers to distance themselves from the controversy, which further hurt Fox News financially. On April 11, 2017, Bill O'Reilly ended his show, The O'Reilly Factor, with a sudden announcement. He said he would be taking a vacation and would return on April 24th. This seemed ordinary at first, but it came during a growing sexual harassment scandal. People quickly began questioning the timing. Just days earlier, the New York Times revealed that O'Reilly and Fox News had paid $13 million over the years to settle claims against him. This report caused more than 50 advertisers, including big names like Mercedes-Benz and BMW, to pull their ads from his show, which was Fox News' biggest moneymaker. O'Reilly's announcement came after losing over a dozen advertisers in just one day. There were more signs this wasn't a typical vacation. O'Reilly had taken a similar break the year before, but this time it felt different. Sources said he originally planned to return on April 18th, but extended his time away as the scandal worsened. Many believed this vacation was really a way for Fox News to decide what to do next. Behind the scenes, the Murdoch family, who owned Fox News, faced a tough decision. Rupert Murdoch, the patriarch, wanted to keep O'Reilly because of his success. But his sons, James and Lachlan Murdoch, thought O'Reilly had to go. The allegations were piling up, and advertisers were fleeing. The situation was even more complicated because of O'Reilly's contract. Just a few months earlier, in February 2017, Fox had renewed his deal for $25 million a year. The contract allowed them to fire him if new allegations surfaced, but it also meant they might have to pay him a huge sum if they let him go. While the Murdochs debated, protesters gathered outside Fox's headquarters. A plane even flew over with a banner demanding O'Reilly's dismissal. Meanwhile, Fox hired a law firm to investigate the claims. The tipping point came when it was revealed that O'Reilly had secretly settled another harassment claim in January 2017 for $32 million. This was shocking even to Rupert Murdoch. The size of the settlement and the fact it had been hidden during contract talks made O'Reilly's position impossible to defend. On April 19, 2017, 21st Century Fox announced that Bill O'Reilly would not return to Fox News. The statement was brief, just 42 words, and said O'Reilly and the company had agreed to part ways after a careful review of the allegations. This ended O'Reilly's 21-year reign at Fox News, where he had been the face of the network and dominated ratings. His show had earned $46.2 million in advertising revenue in just the first quarter of 2017, making his exit a huge deal. The timing of the announcement was strategic. It happened just before a Fox board meeting and while O'Reilly was still on vacation in Italy. On the same day, O'Reilly was photographed shaking hands with Pope Francis in St. Peter's Square, seemingly unaware that he had been fired. Back in New York, Fox quickly reshuffled its lineup. Tucker Carlson took over O'Reilly's 8 p.m. slot, and The Five moved to 9 p.m. Later that day, O'Reilly released a statement defending himself. He said he was proud of his 20 years at Fox News and called the claims against him unfounded. He did not apologize or address any specific allegations, instead presenting himself as a victim of false accusations. A few days later, he launched a podcast and told listeners he believed the truth would come out eventually. Months later, In October 2017, O'Reilly's frustration boiled over. In an interview, he said he was mad at God for not protecting him from the scandal. He described what he and his family had gone through as horrible and showed no signs of taking responsibility for the accusations. Even 6 months after his firing, O'Reilly remained defiant, blaming others for his fall while struggling to move past the controversy.